morning to you, people of Somerset. It is Daniel Mumby, your increasingly damp local democracy reporter. It is a freezing cold, wet day here in Somerset. You join me in Trull, technically in the Staplehey part of Trull, right at the southern edge of what will become the Greater Taunton area. We're near Somerset County Town. It is a freezing cold Tuesday morning, and we are on the main road leading in to Trull as rush hour comes to a close, and I am standing just north of the Cannons Grove halls of residence. You can see some of the accommodation in the background, next to a planned development site of 145 houses, one of 3 housing sites that we're going to be discussing in this little live stream we're doing this morning. Over the next 10 to 15 minutes, maybe a bit longer, we're going to take a stroll along Honiton Road here now, like I say, with the tail end of rush hour traffic. We're going to be talking about major development sites in the village of Trull, which will deliver a combined total of 400 homes if they all go ahead. We'll also be talking a little bit about the Orchard Grove site, which is just over the way, and how that all connects with it. As per usual with these live streams, if you have any comments or questions, drop them in. Those that I can't answer live, I'll respond to retrospectively if I can. So, it's an interesting topic today because the 3 housing sites that we are talking about, these are not all new developments. A couple of them, including the one that's on our left now, as I come towards this footpath opening, you can get a bit of view of the site. Let me just round this small step. It's a bit wet to be going on the footpath itself, but Broadstairs 2012 have had plans in one form or another for 145 houses on this site for the best part of a decade, including 25% affordable housing in line with the planning policies of the former Taunton Deane Borough Council, which have been adopted by Somerset Council since April 2023. So 2 of the 3 developments, in fact I would go so far as to say all 3, have been on the table, so to speak, for quite some time. Now, there have been numerous reasons for a decision on these 3 sites being delayed. One of them is the ongoing phosphates crisis. Trull, like the rest of the former Taunton Deane area, lies within the catchment of the River Tone. We're not far from the Galmington stream, which flows into that river. The River Tone in turn flows into the protected parts of the Somerset Levels and Moors, joining the River Parrett near Boroughbridge, of course, where they're dredging at the moment. And what that means is, since the Natural England ruling in August 2020, following the Dutch end case in the European Union, any development within that flows into the Ramsar area has to provide additional phosphate mitigation. I went a bit Scottish there, sorry about that. No disrespect to our Caledonian compatriots. Has to provide additional mitigation to prevent any net increase in phosphates on the Somerset Levels and Moors. Now, there have been some recent changes to the council's approach to phosphate mitigation, which I'll be reporting on later this week. It's pretty complicated. It involves the recently passed Planning and Infrastructure Act, but suffice to say there have been years of complex and expensive negotiations to try and pin down some of this mitigation. And one of the wrinkles of it is that if you want to start building houses on a given site, the phosphate mitigation not only needs to be agreed before you can start building, but it has to be paid for up front. So one of the reasons why the delivery of Wellington's new railway station has taken some time, because the original developer, West of England Developments Taunton, which is based not far from here in West Buckland, had to cough up £1 million to offset the phosphates for the 200 homes that would deliver the access road to the railway station, and that responsibility has now been taken on by Blore, which is seeking revised permission for a smaller number of houses on the same site. So that's one reason it's become further along Honiton Road. The other, and perhaps more pressing to us today in Taunton, is something called the Green Wedge Review. Now, to prevent Taunton from merging with all of its surrounding villages, whether it's Trull or Norton Fitzwarren or Monkton Heathfield and various other settlements nearby as well, there are a series of green wedges surrounding the county town, and they have been reviewed recently by the council in light of the rising government housing targets, the lack of a 5-year housing land supply, to basically see whether they still make sense, whether any of them can be freed up to deliver infill development in areas where it makes sense to do so. And the outcome of that green wedge review, as I struggle to avoid getting water on the lens of my work issue phone, will not be known until the Council's Planning and Transport Policy Executive Subcommittee meets early next month. And 2 of the 3 development sites are specifically on hold as a result of that review. One is the site that we passed first up, the Cannons Grove site, as I'll dub it. The other is the second site we'll be coming to in a minute, off Comitro Road, for 125 houses. Excuse me. It is a very cold, wet day. I have come out without an umbrella because the forecast said at this time, in this location, it was going to be dry. God bless the Met Office, but they don't get everything right, it would seem. Anyway, the 3 development sites combined together will deliver 400 homes in Trull. And one of the other main wrinkles with it is, of course, that Trull is very close to merging with the wider Taunton area and the neighbouring parish, or former parish we should say, of Comitro. Is it Comitro or Comitro? I can never quite decide. Let me know in the comments, or the comments, as the case may be. Now, the Orchard Grove site is currently being built out at the western end of its neighbourhood, with the majority of development focusing on the A38 Wellington Road and all the homes west of the primary school. But the time will eventually come, with or without help from the government's New Homes Accelerator Fund, but the development will eventually come out as far as Honiton Road here. There will be a new roundabout constructed, not on Honiton Road itself, but just off it to the west. And we are coming up very shortly, in fact, to the site where that new roundabout will be delivered. So we'll get past these remaining houses, keeping an eye out for Comitro Road, and then I'll be able to give you an idea of where it'll be. Plenty of private roads and offshooting roads in this part of the neighbourhood. It's very easy to get lost and turn off too soon, but I have done a bit of a recce, so I more or less know where I'm going. It's true for most of my live streams. If you have only just joined me, it's Daniel Mumby here, your very damp local democracy reporter. It is cold and increasingly wet out here in Trull. We are exploring 3 potential development sites in the village, just to the south of Taunton. People think it's a suburb of Taunton, but it's not. It's a thoroughly different settlement with its own unique character and history. We started our journey near the Cannons Grove campus, which, if you recall, during the coronavirus pandemic was used as part of the government's everyone in approach to provide suitable accommodation for homeless people in the area, providing not just beds to sleep in, but access to local services, health checks and so forth. We started near that site where 145 homes are planned near the Trull Tennis Club, either side of Sweet Hay Lane. Those plans have gone through various iterations over the years. We are now heading towards Comitro Road to point out the second of our sites, and then we'll be doubling back on ourselves a little bit to go down Dipford Road towards the cricket club for the 3rd and final development. I just crossed over the entrance to Gatchell Oaks. Now, I mentioned a few minutes ago about the second access point for the Orchard Grove side. It is getting quite loud here with the rain and the cars. That second roundabout, to provide an eastern entrance to the development, which will eventually comprise 2,000 houses, will be somewhere behind these trees. The exact designs of the roundabout have not yet been approved. You can see the Harris fencing there to stop people from trespassing. It's not a public footpath that way anyway, so minimal traffic at the moment. But a roundabout will essentially be offset behind these trees, similar to the size one that's on Wellington Road on the other side of the Orchard Grove site, and then there'll be feeder lanes coming in and off Wellington Road. There is a lot of work still to do on that, partly with the actual design of it, looking at the visibility concerns, making sure that it's safe for people to enter and exit on a very busy road, particularly at peak times, but also the viability of it. The Orchard Grove site is benefiting from an undisclosed sum from the government's New Homes Accelerator Fund. It's the only site in the southwest to get funding in this round of that grant. We don't know how much, we don't know exactly what proportion of that is going on finishing the spine road through the site, as opposed to delivering maybe a secondary school there, maybe a medical hub, maybe other facilities within the site. There have been various reports, a lot of anecdotal evidence floating around that the existing homes in Orchard Grove are not selling as quickly as the consortium would like. So that all puts pressure on their profit lines in terms of allowing them to deliver infrastructure. I know everybody says you should build the infrastructure first before you build any houses, but sadly the current system doesn't work like that. And while Labour have made some changes to make house building easy and deliver more social housing, we won't see the benefits of that for a good few years. So we'll be keeping a close eye nonetheless. So we've come down to the busy junction here, the Dipford turning, past the bus stop. We go on to Dipford Road briefly. This is bringing back memories of a live stream that I did much earlier in the Orchard Grove's existence, where I used a public footpath to get from one side of it to another, and it was in very similar weather. Fortunately that time I was wearing Wellington boots. Today I'm in not quite Doc Martens, but what passes for them. Other brands are available, of course, and I'm mostly using the pavement, so I'm not getting wet feet as well as wet hair. So we're now coming around. In fact, I'm going to cross over here if I can. You can see the visibility issues that are already present on these narrow lanes. We're going to be going down that way in just a short while, not following that person's flashy supercar. That sounds pretty good, in fairness. Ferrari 360, I think. Little twitchy in this weather. Be careful. Anyway, enough top gearing. We turn onto Comitrow Road, which eventually turns, of course, into Comitrow Lane, and we will head up here just very briefly and talk about the second such site. Now, each of the three sites have attracted formal objections on the council's planning portal from numerous local residents, and you can go online and read those for yourself, but one of the main objectors has been from Trull Parish Council, and they have listed numerous reasons for not being in favour of all three sites. I'm just in the process of getting their statement up on my other phone so I can read it to you. It's definitely around here somewhere, but if I can't find it, I'll essentially paraphrase. You can see a lot of the concerns they have are stuff that would be borne out by the local community in terms of traffic levels, the narrowness of the roads, the fact that there are limited pavements around. It's all very difficult. And they have essentially put a holding application in on all three sites saying, we don't understand the demand for this number of homes in the village. We could take a few more. We're happy to meet our local housing targets, which are obviously minimums set by the government. It's not a top end limit, but with the limited demand for homes at Orchard Grove, we don't see why we should take another 400. Again, I'm paraphrasing there because my link isn't working, but we have come to the second of the two sites. I'm not going to step any further forward because you can see it's saturated with mud. But this is where 125 homes are proposed as part of a new development. These plans were lodged relatively recently, but a decision on them has been delayed, first by the phosphates issue and then by the Green Wedge review that I mentioned earlier in my stream. Just for those who didn't catch it, Somerset Council is carrying out a review at the moment of the green spaces that separate Taunton from the neighbouring villages. That result of that review will come to the Council's Planning and Transport Policy Executive Subcommittee. It's very long-winded, but it is an important committee. On February the 4th, I will not be covering that meeting in person because I'm in Cardiff that day for training reasons, but I will be picking up the results of that debate and I will bring you a full report hopefully later that week. Essentially, if changes to those green wedges are agreed, whether it's removing little bits here and there, maybe adding portions elsewhere, it will have huge ramifications for delivering additional homes in the villages on the edge of Taunton, not just Trull, but looking also at Norton Fitzwarren, at Monkton Heathfield, maybe having impacts on Preach St Michael and those settlements as well. Rewishton would be another example. It's all of which of course will also feed in to the nascent Somerset-wide local plan, which will have its first round of consultation in the spring, probably around April-May time, and will be enacted into law, fingers crossed, by the spring of 2029, but hopefully a lot sooner than that. So we've covered two of the sites, heading back down Comingshire Road, trying not to get knocked over in the process by all the SUVs that are thundering around. I've got a frozen head and a really sore pair of feet because these shoes are not designed for pounding pavements. But we will soldier on and head down Dipford Road for the third and final development site, and hopefully my work phone will not get totally saturated and will lose signal at the last minute. That would be a very tedious experience, in the words of Peter Cook. God rest his soul. I believe it's 30 years, almost 30 years ago that he passed away in 1995. I can't remember exactly when, but one of Britain's greatest comedians and a personal hero of mine. We managed to work Peter Cook and Top Gear into a stream about housing developments in Somerset. This is the great local democracy reporting content that your licence fee helps to fund, and I'm always happy to provide it. So back on the narrow pavement on Dipford Road, and we are now heading to the western edge of Trull towards its cricket club, where 130 new homes are planned, wrapping around the existing houses. Now, one of the curiosities about it, tying things back to Orchard Grove, is the design of the new roundabout and the spine road that will link it up with Egremont Road, which will sort of come through round about this area here. It remains to be seen whether Dipford Road will pass over the spine road in some kind of complicated crossroads, or whether they will simply terminate Dipford Road somewhere around here, with Orchard Grove coming from over there, whether they will terminate it and just have a little stubby section in the east for the existing homes to have access. Clearly there's going to be a lot of debate about that, because if you end up buying a house on this development, if it gets approved, and then all of a sudden you lose your main access to Taunton, you've got to go all the way around on the back lanes just to get into the town, and that, for me, is not good planning. But I'm not a planning inspector, I'm not a highway engineer, what do I know? Oh, it's getting very wet and windy out here, but we will persevere because we're not too far from our final destination. Nobody make a reference to logging tracks or anything along those lines. If you have only just joined me, it's Daniel Mumby, your drenched local democracy reporter. We're out in Trull today talking about 3 housing sites which, if approved, will deliver a total of 400 new homes in the village, all of which have been delayed, first by phosphates and then by the council's review of the Taunton Green Wedge. We're expecting the outcome of that next month. We started our journey at the Cannons Grove site, where 145 homes are planned north of the campus, near Sweetay Lane. We touched on 125 homes that are planned off Comitro Road, stretching up towards College Way. And as we pass the cricket club on our left here, I'll just look over the field. I need to get a bit further down before I can point the exact entrance, but much of the land to my left will be taken up with 130 new homes. Now those plans have been put forward by a land promoter called Trull LVA LLP, so it's not a developer that's applied for that. No problem. It's going to be a much earlier stage, so even if those get outline permission later in the year, it will be a while before those see the light of day. But again, once a housing estate has outline permission, the principle of developing in a given area is established, and then if the Orchard Grove site moves ever eastward and then you end up with those highway issues, it's a real Gordian knot in which to tie yourself. And was it Alexander the Great who had to undo the Gordian knot, or was it Hercules? It was certainly one of the Greek heroes, but by its very nature it was no easy task. Now the parish councils have also objected to these plans, in addition to the various factors that I'll mention in my report, including sustainability, flooding issues. Dipford Road, as you can see, has already got a lot of standing water on it. They were concerned that building houses so close to the cricket club would not help with residential amenity because of the risk of cricket balls going through people's windows. And if you remember our coverage of the recently completed council houses on Seaward Way in Minehead, the Rainbow Way development, that's built very close to Minehead's cricket club, and they actually had to put up quite high fencing on one side of the estate to offset that particular concern. So far, we haven't had any reports of windows being damaged by cricket balls. Admittedly, we are in the winter still, so there'll be indoor nets going on in Minehead, but not much else. We'll see what happens in April, May and June, where hopefully we'll get a nice dry spring after this wet and dreary winter. I wouldn't have minded if it was all frost, because that's kind of picturesque and beautifully melancholy, but endless rain, not my scene. Which begs the question, why did I move to Somerset? Well, I have grown to love the place very much, and you've taken me into your hearts as your local democracy reporter, so who am I to look a gift horse in the mouth? Or perhaps look a gift puddle in the mouth, the case may be. Mixing my metaphors on a Tuesday morning to take my mind off the fact that I am drenched limb from limb. But it's all in a day's work. We're coming further down Dipford Road now. I'm just looking for the proposed access point for those 130 homes. As you can see, there's already quite a lot of residential development on this side. A few houses dotted around on the northern side of Dipford Road as well. And safe access will need to be provided, including addressing any concerns about visibility, maybe widening the pavement a little bit. We don't want to narrow it. Yes, I believe we're just coming up to it now. As we see, I think is, I was going to say that was the Garmington stream, but it sort of disappears a little bit. We are very close to the Garmington stream, but maybe not quite on top of it. So here we go. The proposed entrance to that third development of 130 houses just up on the left here. We'll take a quick look into the farmer's field without getting in their way. And there we have it. We've done a whistle-stop tour of Trull and its future development site. And hopefully that has put into context what the various developers and land promoters are wanting to achieve in this area and the obstacles they are facing. Well, that's it for me this morning. I'm going to leave things here and go and find a towel and get myself thoroughly dried off so I can carry on with hopefully the good work that I'm doing for you. If you have missed any part of this live stream, it will be available on here for the next 30 days. If you need a hard copy, just ping me a message. keep an eye out for my report, which will come out later today or maybe tomorrow, and I'll be back on Friday for another edition of the Big Five, coming to you from the warmth of our Taunton office. In the meantime, from the edge of Trull, here on a very damp and dreary Dipford Road, well, the homes aren't dreary, but the weather is. This is Daniel Mumby, your local democracy reporter. Have a great rest of the day and stay dry. Bye for now.